Good morning, children. Sairam. Welcome back to our science class. And today we'll be continuing with the lesson 12 Air, Water, and Weather. And this is our session 2. Okay, this is our part 2. So I hope you must have gone to the textbook. So, what we learned in part 1? So, revise that so that you will understand the continuation, right? So now let us start with our session 2, that is part 2. And today we are going to learn all about water. That is, we'll learn about okay, let us learn first about the evaporation. Let us learn what is evaporation. Now to explain what is evaporation easily, now take some water in a bowl. So the sunlight must be falling in your balconies, right? So wherever you feel the sunlight is proper, keep that bowl of water under the sunlight and observe it after a few hours. So you can observe that the amount of water has gone down. The amount of water in the bowl must have gone down. It must have decreased because of the heat of the sun. So where did the water go? Because of this heat of the sun, it evaporates. Water evaporates. So that is called evaporation. Okay. So the water changed into water vapor. So you can see the sunlight here. It is falling and the water gets heated and it changes into water vapor due to the heat of the sun. This process is called evaporation. This process is called evaporation. And evaporation of water takes place all the time. Evaporation of the water takes place all the time. But it is faster if the water is heated. For example, when the weather is very hot, so the water evaporates very quickly. Okay, so we have one more experiment for this. Now you can see the evaporation here. The sun rays are falling in the water. So it happens all the time. Okay, so the sun rays, it is falling in the water and the water gets evaporated and the water gets evaporated. This process is called evaporation. And this water is changed into water vapor. And as I said, there is one more experiment you can do at home with the help of your mom. So you take some water in a pan and ask any elderly people to heat up gently for about 5 minutes. So keep it on the gas stove and light it up and just heat the water for 5 minutes over a fire. Okay. So what can you see? So here we can see when the water gets heated, the water in the pan is getting evaporated. The water, when it gets heated, the water gets evaporated. Now ask the adult to hold a steel plate over the pan like this. So when you hold the steel plate over the pan, so after sometimes we can see drops of water forming on the plate. Drops of water forming on the plate. Or you can take a cup of tea or a glass of milk. When the milk is very hot, Then cover the plate, cover the glass of milk with a small plate. When you open after some time, you can see the tiny droplets of water. So, okay, the water vapor cools down when it comes in contact with the cool plate and changes back into water. So when the plate gets cooled down, the water also gets cooled and it changes back into water. And this process is called condensation. This process is called condensation. So what is evaporation? So due to the heat of the sun, the water is heated and the water gets evaporated. So water vapor forms and they form the clouds. And now what is condensation? Now this water vapors, again it cools down. Again it cools down and changes and again it cools down and changes back into water. And this process is called condensation. So in the same way, water vapor also condenses. So this is water vapor, they also condenses when it comes in contact with cold air. When it comes in contact with the cold air, so it turns back into water again. So this process is called condensation. Now let's learn about the water cycle. So water cycle. So what is water cycle? The process gets repeated. The sun is shining, the sun rays are falling in the water and the water gets heated. It turns into water vapor. So can you see here white color water vapor is going up and it forms the clouds, and from the clouds it falls as a rain. Again the rainwater joins the river, sea, lakes, etc. Again the sun is heated, the rays falls on the water, it gets heated and water vapors goes up, it rises up and forms the clouds. And again from the clouds we get the rain, and the rainwater joins the river, lakes, seas, and it comes back here down on the earth again. So again the sun rays heat it up, so it keeps on like a cycle, it keeps on moving the same thing. So it is called water cycle. So as the sun shines down on the earth, water in lakes, rivers and oceans evaporates. So can you see this evaporation? And changes into water vapor. And the air along with the water vapor becomes warm and rises up. So as it rises up higher in the sky, it cools down. The water vapor condenses around tiny dust particles in the air to form the tiny droplets of water. And millions of these droplets together form the clouds. And small water droplets join together and become the bigger and heavier. And then what happens? When they become very heavy, they fall into the ground as rain. When these becomes very heavy, they fall into the ground as rain. And most of the water falls on land that goes back to lakes. The rainwater which falls on the land, then it goes back to lakes, rivers and oceans. And this water again evaporates again and falls as rain. So this process happens again and again. So this repeated change of water to water vapor and then back to water is called the water cycle. Now, next one is hail. Now here we saw that the water comes back as a rain. So the process keeps on repeating. Now what is hail? H-A-I-L, hail. Now sometimes on their way down, raindrops pass through very cold air. So when the rain is falling, so these raindrops pass through very cold and freeze, and it get freeze to form small balls of ice. So can you see the small balls of ice? Yes. So these falls to the ground as a hailstone. Okay. So when the raindrops passes through very cold place, so it freezes and fall as a small balls of ice. So these balls of ice are called as hailstones. And the next one is snow. So you all are very familiar about snow, right? So if the clouds themselves are very cold, so how the snow is falling? If the clouds are very cold, the water vapor condenses and freezes to form ice instead of water. So the ice so formed is in the form of soft, beautiful snowflakes, and they have different shapes. So this is called snow. Okay, so let's stop here in session 2 and let us revise what we learned now. So why is the water cycle called a cycle? Because the wheels of a cycle circulate repeatedly. The wheels of the cycle rotates. So in the same way, water circulates repeatedly between the earth, that is water, and the atmosphere, that is water vapor. So this constant circulation is therefore called the water cycle. Now, how does water cycle affects weather? So when the sun is shining directly, the water from the river, lakes, oceans are evaporated and changes into water vapor and form the clouds. And the cool weather causes the clouds to cool and then condenses into water droplets, which comes down to earth as rain. Thus the water cycle affects the weather. Now, let's stop this session here, children, and remove your textbook and just go through the lesson so that you will understand. Okay, and thank you, and the lesson will be continued, and see you in the next session. Bye bye.